Awake in the dark. Why 3 a.m. may be the most sacred hour of your life. You didn't ask to wake up at 3 a.m., but something did. Not your alarm, not a noise, but a pull, subtle and quiet, like your soul gently tapping your shoulder. Most people call it insomnia. But what if it's something else? What if 3 a.m. is not when the world goes silent, but when your inner world finally speaks? In the Buddhist tradition, we are taught to listen to the breath, the body, the mind, and the subtle signs of life. Waking at 3 a.m. may not be an interruption. It may be an invitation, one that asks, are you ready to turn inward? To see what lies beneath the surface of your sleep, your thoughts, your life? There's something sacred about this hour, when the world is quiet, the distractions are gone, and the masks we wear in daylight gently fall away. In this moment, you're not a role, a title, or a list of obligations. You're simply you. And perhaps that's exactly why it feels so unsettling. Because without the noise, you can finally hear what's been whispering inside all along. In monasteries across the world, Buddhist monks rise at 3 or 4 a.m., not to fight against sleep, but to meet the stillness. This hour has long been known as a time of spiritual clarity, when the mind is most open and the heart most honest. It's not about the absence of sleep. It's about the presence of awareness. This video is not about fixing your sleep. It's about listening to your life. Through Buddhist insight, gentle reflection, and modern understanding, we'll explore what waking at 3 a.m. really means, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. We'll look at what science says, what Buddhism reveals, and what your own experience may be trying to teach you. If you've ever woken up at this hour and felt frustrated, lost, or alone, this is for you. Not to put you back to sleep, but to guide you into a deeper awakening. Because maybe you're not waking up for no reason. Maybe you're waking up because it's time to come home to yourself. Let's begin. The 3 a.m. wake-up call, a message from the mind, not a mistake. You wake up again. It's 3:07. The room is still, the shadows haven't moved, but something in you has. You're not startled, you're not sweating, but you're undeniably awake. And a quiet question rises in the dark. Why now? Most people would say it's just disrupted sleep, a biological glitch. Nothing to worry about. But deep down, it doesn't feel like nothing. It feels like something unfinished, something unseen, something quietly asking to be noticed. In the practice of mindfulness, the first thing we're taught is not to dismiss experience, but to observe it, with gentle curiosity, not with judgment. So what if waking up at 3 a.m. isn't a mistake? What if it's a moment when the mind, unfettered by daily noise, tries to speak, not with words, but with sensation, memory, or emotion? In Buddhism, this is not unusual. The mind, untangled from external distractions, will often begin to reveal what we've been ignoring, what we've been too busy, too afraid, or too numb to feel during the day. This is why we often wake at the same time, night after night. It's not random. It's a rhythm, a signal, like a bell being struck deep within. Sometimes it's unresolved grief. Sometimes it's worry disguised as stillness. Sometimes it's just the body's way of saying, I'm not at ease. And when we meet that moment with resistance, trying to force ourselves back into sleep, we miss the invitation. But when we soften into it, we may begin to hear what our heart has been trying to say. A Zen master once said, the mind, left alone, returns to its natural clarity. In the silence of 3 a.m., when nothing demands your attention, you're given a window into that natural mind. That's why Buddhist monks rise at this hour, not because they can't sleep, but because they choose to wake up when the world is still and the self is bare. And you, waking up unintentionally, are brushing against the same threshold. The question is not, how do I fall back asleep? But what is this moment waking me up to? For some, it may be a call to reflect. For others, it may simply be the body adjusting to age, loss, or change. But in either case, there's no need to panic. The Buddha taught that suffering begins when we fight what is. Peace begins when we observe it with kindness. So, next time you wake at 3 a.m., try not to fill the silence with frustration. Try not to drown the moment with your phone or the glow of distraction. Just breathe. Sit with yourself. Listen, because it may not be a sleep problem. It may be a spiritual whisper reminding you you're alive, you're aware, and something inside you is ready to be seen. The melatonin shift. Why aging changes your sleep, not your worth. You used to sleep through the night without even thinking about it. You'd lay down, close your eyes, and wake up when the sun came up. But now, you wake up at 3 a.m. Not because of a nightmare, not because of noise, just awake, fully, and you wonder, what's happening to me? For many, this quiet interruption feels like a sign that something's wrong, either with the body, the mind, or both. But in truth, something is happening. It's called change, and it's not a failure. It's a fact of life. As we age, the body gently shifts. Hormones like melatonin, the natural chemical that regulates your sleep-wake cycle, begin to decline. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means your rhythm is evolving. And yet, most people meet this change with frustration. They believe they should still sleep like they did in their 30s. But nature disagrees. And in Buddhism, we're taught that suffering arises not from what is, but from our resistance to it. When we accept impermanence as a natural part of life, we soften. We begin to see that waking at night isn't a sign of weakness, but a signal. The body is not malfunctioning, it's adapting. In the same way that leaves fall in autumn and flowers close at dusk, your internal system is following its own rhythm. The problem isn't the rhythm. The problem is the expectation that you should still operate the way you once did. There's a profound teaching in Buddhist thought. Let go of how things used to be, and peace will come more quickly. And this includes how you sleep. Aging brings new needs, new patterns, new moments of awareness. If you allow those early awakenings to be what they are, not problems, but part of the path, you'll discover they carry less fear, less frustration. Instead of thinking, I'm broken, you'll begin to think, I'm listening. Many elders in monastic life speak of the body as a teacher. When they began waking earlier in life, they didn't fight it. They used the time to meditate, reflect, and simply breathe. It became a new form of practice, a dialogue with the body. You don't need to be a monk to do the same. When you wake at 3 a.m., instead of bracing against it, you can soften into it. Light a candle. Sit quietly. Place a hand on your heart. Let your body know, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm with you. Your worth was never measured by how many hours you sleep. It's measured by how tenderly you live. Aging does not make you less. It makes you different. And with mindfulness, it can make you wiser. So the next time you wake in the quiet hours, remember, your body is not betraying you. It's inviting you to begin again with presence, with awareness, with peace. Rhythms of change. When your inner clock no longer follows the world. There comes a moment in life when your body stops keeping time with the outside world. You feel it when the sun hasn't yet risen, but you're wide awake. You feel it when your neighbors are just sitting down to dinner, and your body is already asking to rest. At first, it feels like your rhythm is broken, as if something is off. But the truth is, it's not broken, it's changing, and that change is natural. Science calls it advanced sleep phase. As we age, our internal circadian clock, once synchronized with the pulse of daily life, shifts forward. We get sleepy earlier. We wake up earlier. It doesn't mean we're malfunctioning. It means the body is adjusting, recalibrating to a quieter tempo. Yet most of us fight it. We force ourselves to stay up later, to keep pace with others, to pretend we're still in rhythm with a world we no longer match. And in doing so, we suffer, not because our bodies are wrong, but because we resist what is. Buddhism teaches that peace comes not from controlling life, but from aligning with it. Instead of demanding that the body obey the clock, we can begin listening to its wisdom. What if, instead of seeing your early rising as a disruption, you saw it as an invitation? What if this new rhythm isn't something to fix, but something to honor? Imagine your body as a wise elder, speaking gently. It's time, it says. Time to rise before the noise begins. Time to greet the world in stillness. When we tune into that message, something shifts. We stop fighting the natural flow of our lives. We start working with it. And with that comes relief, not just physical, but emotional. The pressure to keep up dissolves. The urge to compare fades. In its place, there is permission to be as you are now, not as you were 20 years ago. A woman once told me, I used to think waking early meant I was getting old. But now I think it means I'm finally living at the pace I was always meant to. There's truth in that. The modern world runs fast, faster than most of us can keep up with. But your body knows better. Your body seeks balance, quiet, restoration. And when it calls you awake at 3 a.m., it may not be a glitch. It may be grace. So instead of asking, how do I fix this? Maybe ask, how do I flow with this? In the soft hours of the morning, the world hasn't yet demanded anything of you. It's a rare moment of freedom. And if you meet it with presence, you may find it gives more than it takes. Your new rhythm may no longer follow the world, but it might finally be in tune with your soul. Pain at dawn. What your body is trying to teach you. There's something about the early hours of the morning that seems to amplify discomfort. You wake not just to silence, but to a twinge in your hip, a stiffness in your hands, a dull ache in your back that feels louder in the stillness. In the middle of the day, those same sensations might be drowned out by movement, distraction, or noise. But at 3 a.m., there's nowhere to run. Just you, your breath, and what your body is trying to say. Most of us are taught to resist pain. We take pills, push through, try to distract ourselves. We label it as something to fix, something that shouldn't be here. But in Buddhist practice, pain is not the enemy. It's a teacher. It points us towards something deeper, toward the reality of change, the truth of impermanence, and the need to pay attention. The body, like the mind, speaks in whispers. And when we don't listen during the day, it sometimes raises its voice at night. Perhaps that tightness in your chest isn't just physical tension. It's grief you haven't yet cried. Perhaps the restlessness in your legs isn't just circulation. It's an unspoken need to move, to shift, to live differently. The Buddha taught that all things are in motion, including the body. Pain, when met with awareness, becomes a message, and the stillness of dawn gives you the space to hear it. There's a kind of honesty that pain demands from us. It pulls us out of distraction and into presence. It doesn't care about your schedule, your goals, your to-do list. It simply asks, can you be here now, with what is? And if you answer not with resistance but with softness, something begins to shift. Instead of tensing, you breathe. Instead of panicking, you observe. And in that quiet exchange, you begin to transform suffering into understanding. I once heard a meditation teacher say, your pain is not punishment, it's participation. That stayed with me. What if your body isn't trying to punish you, but to involve you, to bring you back to the present moment, to reconnect you with yourself? At 3 a.m., when no one else is watching, the body may finally feel safe enough to reveal what it's been holding all day. So the next time you wake up with discomfort, don't rush to escape it. Sit beside it like you would a child having a hard time. Ask it what it needs. Offer it kindness, not critique. In Buddhist tradition, we bow to our suffering, not because we enjoy it, but because we respect it as part of the path. Your pain may not be your enemy. It may be your practice. A lifestyle that quietly alters your sleep. You didn't change your life all at once. It happened gradually. The pace slowed, responsibilities shifted, and without realizing it, your days became quieter. You eat dinner a little earlier now. You move a little less. Evenings are softer, the lights dim sooner, and before you know it, you're drifting off on the couch before the news is even over. None of it seems significant in the moment, but together, these gentle shifts form a new rhythm, and that rhythm quietly rewrites your sleep. It's not just age, it's routine, retirement, caregiving, or simply stepping into a slower phase of life changes how and when we move, eat, think, and rest. And the body listens. It adapts, even without our conscious permission. When you go to bed at 9 p.m., out of habit, it makes sense that by 3 a.m., your body thinks it's morning. You didn't break anything. You just evolved. In the teachings of mindfulness, we're reminded that our habits are not neutral, they are powerful. Each act, even small, leaves an imprint on the mind and body. And when repeated, it becomes a pattern, a new normal. But most of us don't pause long enough to ask, is this pattern serving me? Or have I simply slipped into it without awareness? Buddhism doesn't judge change. It simply invites us to witness it, to bring light to what is usually unconscious. So the next time you find yourself awake at 3 a.m., ask yourself, what led me here? Not in the dramatic sense, but in the quiet way. What do my evenings look like now? When do I stop moving? What am I feeding my body, my mind, before I sleep? Sometimes, the answer is startlingly gentle. A walk after dinner, a conversation that lingers, the light on too long, or too little movement during the day. These are not problems. They are clues. And when approached with curiosity instead of blame, they become pathways back to balance. The Buddha once said, with our thoughts, we make the world, but with our habits, we shape the night. Your sleep is not separate from how you live. It reflects the flow or friction of your days. So instead of fighting the 3 a.m., wake up, consider it an invitation to look more closely at how you spend the hours before the sun goes down. You don't need to overhaul your life. Just notice. Adjust gently. Move a little more. Breathe a little deeper. Light a candle at night and see how it changes your mood. Your body isn't punishing you. It's responding to the rhythm you've created. The question is, are you willing to listen? The emotional echo, when your heart wakes before the world does. Sometimes it's not your body that wakes you. It's your heart. Long before the birds begin to sing or the first rays of sunlight brush the windowsill, something inside you stirs. You open your eyes, and there's no pain, no urgent thought, just a quiet ache. A feeling that doesn't shout, but lingers. Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's nothing you can name, only something you can feel. At 3 a.m., the world is silent. But inside, the echoes begin. Memories rise without invitation. Regrets you thought were resolved whisper back to life. You remember a voice, a moment, a decision you made or didn't make. You feel the weight of love lost, or time that passed too quickly. And it hits harder because there are no distractions left to shield you. The noise is gone. What remains is raw, honest, and deeply human. In Buddhism, we're taught not to fear these moments, but to welcome them, not as problems, but as reminders. The mind doesn't always process everything during the day. It stores, it holds, it waits. And when the world gets quiet enough, it opens the door. What you feel at 3 a.m. might not be a disturbance. It might be truth, waiting for you to stop and listen. There is wisdom in the stillness. When the heart speaks, it rarely demands answers. It asks for presence, not to be fixed, but to be felt. And in that space, something begins to soften. You stop pushing away the ache. You stop labeling it as wrong. You simply let it exist. And in that letting, healing begins. A widow once told me, "I never cry during the day, but in the early morning, I feel like he's still here, and that's when my tears know they're safe." That is what the heart knows. It waits until the world is quiet enough to be heard. It wakes you not to disturb your rest, but to give you a chance to return to what matters. Buddhism calls this the path of mindful compassion, turning toward what hurts, with gentleness instead of fear. You don't need to solve anything at 3 a.m. You only need to be with what arises. Sometimes that means journaling. Sometimes that means just placing your hand on your chest and breathing through the feeling. Sometimes that means whispering to your younger self, "You're allowed to feel this." The emotional echo is not a flaw in your sleep. It is the unfinished music of your life, asking to be heard one more time before morning. And if you listen, not with resistance but with reverence, you may discover that these quiet awakenings are not breaking you. They are returning you to yourself. What science says, what Buddhism reveals. Science and spirituality don't always speak the same language, but sometimes they point to the same truth, just from different sides of the same mountain. When it comes to waking at 3 a.m., modern neuroscience and ancient Buddhist wisdom may be saying something surprisingly similar. This moment of stillness is not random. It's meaningful. From a scientific perspective, the early hours of the morning are part of what's known as the circadian trough, a natural dip in body temperature and alertness that occurs when melatonin is still active, but cortisol is starting to rise. It's a fragile time for the nervous system, and for many, it's when stress hormones are quietly preparing the body for the day. If you've been carrying anxiety, grief, or unresolved thoughts, this is the hour they often surface. Not because something's wrong with you, but because your mind is most vulnerable and most open. Sleep researchers have also discovered that during the last few hours of the night, the brain cycles through more REM sleep, the stage most associated with emotional memory processing. So when you wake up in the middle of that process, it's not just your body that's restless. It's your emotional landscape, stirring beneath the surface, asking to be seen. Buddhism doesn't have a word for melatonin or REM sleep, but it has something even deeper: awareness. It teaches that nothing arises without cause. If you wake at 3 a.m., it is not a mistake of biology, but a moment conditioned by body, mind, habit, and karma. The question is not, how do I stop it, but what is it revealing? While science scans brainwaves and hormone levels, Buddhism looks directly at the nature of suffering and the mind. The Buddha taught that our suffering often arises not from the experience itself, but from our relationship to it, our clinging, our resistance, our craving for things to be different. Waking at 3 a.m. becomes a mirror. It reflects back the very places in our lives where we're holding on too tightly or avoiding too much. What science helps us understand in terms of function, Buddhism helps us meet with compassion. It doesn't just name the process, it teaches us how to hold it gently, without fear. In the West, we're taught to fix discomfort. In the East, we're invited to observe it, to befriend it, to let it transform us. At 3 a.m., your nervous system may be active, your brain may be processing memory, and your thoughts may be swirling. But underneath all of that, there is space. The space of pure awareness. The space Buddhism calls clear seeing. Science can tell you what's happening, but Buddhism can help you be present with what's happening without running away from it. You don't need to choose between the two. You can let science explain the mechanics and let mindfulness guide the experience. One gives you the map, the other walks with you on the path. 3 a.m. as a spiritual window. How to turn restlessness into reflection. Waking at 3 a.m. can feel like a curse. The clock glows faintly. Your thoughts stir like leaves in the wind. You shift positions, trying to trick your body into returning to sleep, but something deeper holds you awake. And yet, what if this restlessness isn't a problem to fix, but a window to step through? A spiritual opening that only reveals itself in the quiet hours of the night? In Buddhism, we are taught that clarity often arises in stillness, not the stillness of a perfect life, but the stillness that comes when distractions fall away. At 3 a.m., the world is silent. Your phone doesn't ring. No emails arrive. The masks we wear during the day, strong, capable, busy, fall away. What remains is the simple truth of presence. This is where practice begins. Not in the meditation hall, not on the mountain, but in the soft, vulnerable space between sleep and waking. If your body won't let you sleep, perhaps it's asking you to wake up in a different way. Not to do more, not to solve anything, but to notice, to be with yourself without filters, without goals. In this sacred pause, you have a chance to meet your life. Not the version you present to others, but the one that breathes beneath it all. The breath you often forget, the feelings you keep pushing aside, the longings that still live inside your chest. What if instead of calling it insomnia, you called it invitation? A quiet call from the soul to come closer, to listen, to reflect. You don't have to meditate perfectly. You don't have to sit upright or chant or do anything at all. Just light a candle if you wish. Sit near a window. Place your hand on your chest. Breathe gently and say, "I'm here. I'm listening." This is the practice of deep reflection, not with judgment, but with tenderness. You are not broken for waking up. You are human, and being human means carrying things. Sometimes the load is heavy. Sometimes it surfaces at 3 a.m. when it finally has enough space to speak. If you meet it with kindness, it doesn't have to shout. Many Buddhist teachers speak of the hour before dawn as a time when the veils between the outer world and the inner world are thin, not in a mystical sense, but in a deeply human one. When everything around you is quiet, you have a rare chance to hear what matters most. You don't need to seek enlightenment at 3 a.m. Just be present. Just be gentle. In that small act of staying with yourself, you may discover that restlessness can become reflection. And reflection, when met with compassion, becomes transformation. From resistance to reverence, learning to love the still hours. At first, you hated waking up at 3 a.m. You fought it. You tossed and turned, counted sheep, reached for your phone, anything to escape the silence. It felt like an interruption, a betrayal, a sign that something was wrong. But over time, something subtle began to shift. The stillness stopped feeling so hostile. The darkness stopped feeling so heavy. And in that quiet space where resistance used to live, something else began to grow: reverence. We don't often use that word, reverence. It sounds too sacred for something as ordinary as sleeplessness. But when you've spent enough nights awake, not out of fear but out of presence, you start to realize these hours hold something rare. The still hours are not empty. They are full of truths too quiet to compete with the noise of the day. Buddhism teaches that peace doesn't come from changing what is, but from changing how we relate to it. When you stop fighting the night softens. When you stop demanding sleep, the body relaxes. When you stop fearing your thoughts, the mind becomes a friend. The still hours become less like punishment and more like prayer, an intimate conversation with the parts of yourself that only speak in whispers. This shift doesn't happen all at once. At first, you just stop panicking. Then you begin observing. And one morning, you might catch yourself feeling grateful, not for being awake, but for being with yourself in a way that feels unhurried, undistracted, and deeply alive. That's reverence, not in the grand, religious sense, but in the quiet awe that arises when you sit beside your own heart and realize it has something to say. There's a Japanese concept called yugen, the subtle beauty of things unseen. The still hours are filled with yugen. You can't hold it. You can't measure it. But you can feel it when the world is asleep and you're sitting in the dark, breathing, not wanting to be anywhere else. It's not about fixing your sleep. It's about befriending the moment. So the next time you wake in the middle of the night, try this. Instead of saying, "Why am I awake again?" say, "What part of me wants to be heard?" Instead of trying to shut the moment down, open it gently. Light a candle. Drink warm tea. Read one page of a book that makes you feel less alone. Or simply sit. Simply breathe. In the still hours, there is no need to prove, perform, or perfect. There is only the quiet invitation to come home, to yourself, to this breath, to the sacredness of being alive and awake when no one else is watching. That is not suffering. That is grace. The wisdom of waking. When sleep ends, awareness begins. Most of the world sees waking at 3 a.m. as an inconvenience, a disruption, an interruption to what should be a seamless night of rest. But the more you sit with it, the more you listen instead of resist, the more you begin to realize something deeper. Waking isn't the problem. Waking is the beginning. In Buddhist practice, waking up has never just meant getting out of bed. It means becoming aware. Aware of the body, the breath, the mind, and the moment. It means stepping out of automatic patterns and into conscious presence. And perhaps that's why so many of us wake in the quietest hours of the night, because the rest of the day is too full, too fast, too noisy to hear what life is really asking of us. At 3 a.m., there is no audience, no schedule, no pressure to perform. What you meet in those hours is raw and unfiltered. And if you approach it with gentleness instead of frustration, it becomes a teacher. You begin to notice what you usually overlook. You hear your thoughts with more clarity. You feel your emotions with more honesty. You recognize how much of your day is spent asleep, not in bed, but in distraction. This kind of waking doesn't come with alarms or sunlight. It arrives like a whisper, a soft voice saying, "You're here. You're alive. Pay attention." The wisdom of waking is not in fixing the sleep that was lost, but in receiving the awareness that was found. Because what you see at 3 a.m. is what's been there all along, waiting for you to pause, to breathe, to notice. And the moment you do, something inside shifts. You begin to carry that awareness into the rest of your life. You become a little more patient, a little more present, a little more alive. You no longer see waking as failure, but as a quiet blessing in disguise. The Buddha never promised we would sleep soundly every night, but he did teach that we could live with clarity in every moment we're awake, even the inconvenient ones, even the lonely ones, especially those, because that's where transformation lives, not in perfect sleep, but in imperfect presence. So when sleep ends, don't rush to fill the space. Let it breathe. Let it reveal. Let it show you what your life looks like when the world is silent and the only thing left to hear is the truth. That's not the end of rest. That's the beginning of awakening. Conclusion: 3 a.m. is not the end of the night. It's the beginning of your inner light. You began this journey searching for answers about sleep, about aging, about why you keep waking up when the world is still dark. But what you may have found along the way is something even more meaningful, a new relationship with yourself, not defined by sleep patterns or biological clocks, but by presence, by the simple act of listening, really listening to your body, your heart, and your life. In the quiet of 3 a.m., you've seen how restlessness can become reflection, how discomfort can become wisdom, how what once felt like interruption now feels like invitation. You've learned that waking in the middle of the night doesn't mean something is wrong. It may mean something within you is finally ready to be seen. Buddhism teaches that everything we experience can be a doorway to awareness if we meet it with mindfulness, even the still hours, especially the still hours, because that's when the world is quiet enough for the truth to rise. And what you find in that truth isn't something to fear. It's something to honor. The part of you that is awake, not just physically, but spiritually. The part of you that no longer wants to run, but to return to this breath, this moment, this life. Science gave us understanding. Buddhism gave us clarity. But it is your experience that gave it meaning. And now the choice is yours. Will you keep resisting these early hours? Or will you welcome them as a sacred time to meet yourself again? You don't need perfect sleep to feel at peace. You need presence. You need space. You need to know that nothing is wrong with you, that waking at 3 a.m. may simply mean you're alive, aware, and being called to grow. So the next time you wake in the middle of the night, don't rush to push it away. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Let it guide you, not back to sleep, but back to your center. Back to the light that's been quietly glowing within you all along. Because 3 a.m. is not the end of the night. It is the beginning of your inner light. If this message touched something in you, if it helped you feel seen or understood, please consider sharing it with someone who might need it too. And if you'd like to keep walking this path of reflection and healing, I invite you to subscribe and stay connected with us for more videos like this. You can also explore our other reflections on how Buddhist wisdom can help with emotional pain, aging, love, and letting go, offering not answers, but presence. Thank you for spending this time with me. May your quiet hours be filled not with fear, but with clarity. And may the light within you always guide you home.